In a video that I recorded not long ago, I was referring to a concept, namely the concept of the self-image of a particular type. And as you may have noticed, this is a concept that I like to invoke in my discussions of personality types. I have never made a whole video on that notion, so this is the first. But I also want to mention that this is a concept that is peculiarly absent from the discussions of personality types most of the time, and on pretty much every platform. You will rarely encounter it on personality type YouTube channels, on forums, on Discord servers, in discussions on Discord servers, in books, in the work of this or that particular writer, on personality type theorists, on personality types. The discussions often center on the same things, namely, how does this type use these functions? How do they show these functions? How do the functions relate to each other? Maybe how do they relate to their shadow functions? What are the particular compatibilities between types? Particular interest types, types at work, type with friends, types with family, all that stuff is interesting, but it's also a little bit predictable and it can get a bit stale after a while. Now, the concept of the self-image to me is something that is absolutely crucial because it says something fundamental about types, and not just about what a type is like, but also, as I'm going to try to argue in this video, it probably says something about what happens in early childhood to interact with genetics to yield a particular person of a particular type. So implicit in this postulate is the belief that I currently hold, that seems to me reasonable, namely that a type is neither completely genetic, neither completely inherited, nor completely environmentally determined, nurture determined. Like so many things, including, in fact, genes themselves, it is a bit of both. It is both at the same time, right? So the way that we become people of a certain type has to do with our heredity and with our environment. Now, of course, not just at any point in your life. It doesn't have to do with your environment when you're 45. By then, you've had a type. Your type has been established, has solidified, and has asserted itself, and you're not going to be of another type by then, okay? At least not according to the way I look at it. You can't really change your Jungian type. You can change other things, but not your Jungian type. So the particular environment where you where these dynamics are on display, and contribute to the solidification and crystallization of type is probably between like 0 and 3 years old, right? Could even be less, could be between 0 and 2, 0 and 1.5, but I think we could sort of be liberal and say between 0 and 3 years old, right? The interaction of your genetic heritage and your environment determines your type between 0 and 3. I think that it's probably the case. So it's not enough to inherit. It's not enough to be determined by your environment. It's both. So how does that connect with the notion of the self-image? Well, first of all, like I said, the self-image, the idea that INFJs, in addition to all the things that INFJs share that people talk about, INFJs also share core features of a particular self-image, right? INFJs tend to see themselves as deep. They tend to see themselves as reserved. They tend to see themselves as misunderstood, which is a topic that I've discussed quite a bit lately. They tend to see themselves as future focused. They tend to see themselves as abstract. They tend to see themselves as morally upright. The question, and that's to do also with obviously the strong superego of INFJs. All that I've just mentioned, and there's more, are traits that you'll find in the INFJ self-image. So for example, you will not find usually in the INFJ self-image being a good leader or having good leadership qualities, right? Or being a great, I don't know, a charmer, for example, or someone who's like physically very active, high performing. You know, these are parts of the self-images of other types, no doubt, not part of the INFJ self-image. So the self-image that someone has says something about their type affiliation. It also says something about what, you know, and it's connected, of course, what their early years must have been like. Because one self-image says something about the ego ideal. In the self-image is not contained simply the projections of what one believes one is. It also contains the projections of what one believes one can become, i.e. what one would ideally like to be. And that's the ego ideal. Now, the ego ideal is folded into the superego as an agency, and we know that it is formed early-ish in life, pretty early in life, and usually a very strong and very demanding ego ideal is formed as a kind of compensation for something that didn't happen so well in the child's early life, that their perceived needs, demands, requests, their importance just wasn't acknowledged. They perhaps had their first experiences of not being adequately understood or cared for in some way. As a result, they felt that they were deficient in some way, because that is far less terrifying than to imagine that the fact that their parents could actually not care or care enough or not understand them, because at that time it's something that's actually kind of a matter of survival. So usually what happens is that they develop this notion that they can change to become better. And in the child's minds, the second part of that sentence is to become better so that my parents will now understand me, like me, care for me in the way that I want them to. In the adult mind, that part gets repressed. Not erased, but repressed. It's not something that you can easily admit to yourself. But the first part, I will be someone who remains. Now, it remains the case and exists in every person, of course, not just in INFJs, but that part of the ego ideal is so closely connected to that of anyone's self-image that if we can identify the particular characteristics of that self-image, we know what the ego ideal is likely to be like, and therefore we know that these particular traits of the ego ideal had their first seeds early in life, and we can then see them, like again, all the elements being long-range thinker, future-focused, profound, reserved, and so on. That can tell us that these are actually, at some level, at any rate, compensations for something that we're missing. And so then you can get access to what was the experience of the something that was missing. Give me a like if you enjoyed this video, guys. Looking forward to talking about it with you. Don't forget that my Patreon page is down below if you'd like to support me. I could not do it without you, and I need you more than ever. You know, it's not expensive to join my Patreon, and you get access to really cool perks like my Discord server, interact with me every day and with the other members of the community, as well as a bonus video, a deep dive into a topic of your choice every 3 weeks or thereabouts. If that sounds good, hopefully see you there. And don't forget that I have written 2 books on the INFJ personality. First one in the Soul series, the Ecstatic Soul, to this day the deepest investigation of the INFJ mind. Find it at the link below and get it if you haven't yet. Anyone who is interested in INFJ should also get this book, The Infinite Soul, the sequel, second book in the Soul series, and it's about INFJs in the world. This world that is often seen as hostile, and yet it is our world, and this book looks at how INFJs can lead productive, meaningful, and rich lives in this world. See you soon, guys, and take care.